Hi guys and welcome back. Today is going to be another YouTube Artist Collective piece, and just a little bit of information if you don't know what that is just a group of us YouTube artists where we get together, and I believe there's about 13 or 14 members of us now, and we create a piece dedicated to a theme that you guys can vote for over at the Facebook page. So I'll have a link in the description to the Facebook page where you can follow it and be able to vote on themes and get information on that over there. But I will also have a link to all of the individual members who will also be participating in this. So if you want to see a lot of other artists' take on the Zodiac theme, which is the theme for today, you can check that out in the description. And it's really cool to see how each person interprets this theme differently. I think that that's one of the funnest parts for me, is to be able to see the finished pieces that we all come up with. But diving in with this piece, it is the Zodiac, as we talked about, and I wanted to do something a little bit, not just one Zodiac character theme. I wanted it to be a little bit more thought-provoking or original, or just something that got me thinking a little bit more on how to turn it into a piece that I felt excited about. And that's one of my favorite things, that feeling of having an assignment that I have to work through and problem solve until I have something that I'm excited about enacting because it works through this problem. And that's another one of my favorite things about the YouTube Artist Collective, is that it gives me a theme and it gives me something that I have to work off. And I really do love working in that way. But this time around, I thought of a few different options that I was kind of juggling around, and I looked up a lot of different imagery that would kind of fit that, or different references that I would need for them, and then I sketched them out, and ultimately ended up with this concept that I'm working on, and it's a star-crossed lovers kind of a theme. So I wanted to choose two different zodiac signs that were quote-unquote incompatible. So you know how you can take those like quizzes where they say, well, if you're this sign, then these are your best matches for love. And I wanted to choose ones that were specifically not compatible. And I don't know, I thought it was really fun to be able to think through how would I design that out, these two people who love each other, but for whatever reason they're being torn apart, the star-crossed lovers kind of a theme. And yeah, I really liked having that duality to it and working through it. I always love working with themes that have two sides to it, or a multi-dimensional element to it. So I wanted to show them being pulled together and having a connection, but also a certain level of disconnect between them. And I really like the design process of this one, working on it. But I will say, this is one of the pieces that I really fought with. There's a lot of pieces like that where I just, for whatever reason, I just really, really struggle with it. And I struggled to get it to being a final piece that I'm really excited about. And this one was for sure one of them. And that's okay. Like, that's an okay thing for me to be able to go through something and really fight through it, and ultimately look at the piece and be able to come to peace with it. I think that that's a skill that I've really tried to cultivate lately, because I know how incredibly frustrating that feels when you have all these hopes and excitements for a piece, and then it gets off track, and then it ends up being not what you imagined, or worse than you hoped it would be. And that can be incredibly frustrating. And I know how that can be, where it feels like it just makes me want to stagnate, where I want to just pity myself for that piece not being exactly what I wanted it to be. But I've forced myself over many, many pieces in many years to look at it as a piece that I can just be glad that I learned things from, glad I tried things out, and then move on to the next thing. I find it particularly hard when I'm really excited about the concept and then the execution gets pulled away from it. And that's kind of where I was at with this piece. I would like to talk about specific things. I do want to mention, though, whenever I talk about pieces like this where I do feel like it wasn't 100% success, I do want to give a disclaimer where that doesn't mean that I hate the piece or that I think everything that I did was wrong. Simply that there are a lot of choices that I could have made better, and it's really helpful to be able to look at a piece and know what that is. So this is a skill that I recommend everyone work on and see if they can figure it out as far as how to work with it with their own pieces. But yes, let's just dive right in with the things that I did like. How about that? We'll start with some positives. I really liked the rendering of the character on the left side. I loved that I was able to get some more interesting and finessed ways of adding the shadows to her skin. I find that that's one of the elements that I'm working on getting a little bit better at. So yeah, this one I had a lot more patience at the beginning. That was good that I started off with that, because I had more patience and I took my time, and I was I let myself take a breath and make specific decisions, and then tried to be very controlled with my brush strokes. And it's a stark contrast, honestly, with the rest of the piece. And I think that is a big thing that took this one away from where it could have been, is that at the beginning I was moving much slower and more careful, but because this piece ended up being right on the deadline and I had to get it done tonight, it meant that I was feeling the pressures of time. And as time went on and I was getting less and less done, the more I started speeding and the more I started rushing through executing, painting it in, as well as the decision making. So I think the one thing this really did teach me is that the areas that I really liked were ones that I was very thought out with. I was very thorough in the color comp stage. I made sure that I really studied that out. And I took my time. And the areas that I was less happy with were the areas that I rushed through and got antsy with, and I just got impatient with it. So that's a good reminder for me to remember that I just need to calm down and slow down and be aware of why I'm making each decision, as well as taking the time to execute them in the level that I know I'm capable of. Okay, so recap. I actually really like the way that I rendered the first character, I should say. The one on the left, I like the time that it took, and I like the overall quality of it. I really liked how she turned out, which made it even more frustrating when the other half of this painting didn't have that same quality that I liked. So the biggest thing I think that really affected the overall success of the rest of the piece is that I didn't take as much time to really think through and plan out exactly what colors are going to happen for the second character as well as the background. So it wasn't from lack of time spent on color comps, because I worked on trying to figure out the colors for several hours at least. But it did happen because I jumped the gun. I got impatient and decided that I was done planning. I had done enough. I figured it out. I was just going to dive into the final one because I couldn't figure out something that would work. So clearly that was not the right choice. And that usually is the thing that ends up messing up pieces this drastically, is when I really jump the gun and I don't actually know what it's going to be. And I think that I can just add a little bit, and I never can. I can't do that. So yeah, the background was just a little bit, well, it was pretty much the exact same value as the second character, as well as very similar color temperatures. So that second character really just blended in with the background. While the first character on the left, she had contrast and value as well as color temperature, so she stood out. But since the composition of this piece is pretty symmetrical, half of it fades out and the other half stands out, making it actually visibly appear very imbalanced. So yeah, I wish that I had been a little bit more thorough of making sure that the second character had enough contrast between the background, as well as blending in a little bit more cohesion with that first character. I think that was also a point that I got a little bit sidetracked with, is that I usually am relatively okay at making sure that I keep the colors in check so that I have nice cohesion through everything. But this one, I had a few too many differing colors happening, and they just felt like they were pulling away. And because of that, I tried to fix it by adding new layers on top of it of different colors to coordinate them a little bit more, but ultimately that just ended up pulling it away. So yeah, I could have been a little bit more cohesive with the actual colors that I chose. But again, that is 100% just something that is a good reminder of things that I need to do a little bit better of in the future. And the title of this piece was actually part of a quote from Romeo and Juliet, which seemed like a fitting theme to have. But it was, these violent delights have violent ends. And I love this quote. And it's actually used pretty prominently in Westworld, which is an amazing series. I loved it. It was really haunting. So it always stuck. And I like that I had a piece that could fit that, and it did actually make sense with the original quote. And that's where I got the title for this piece. And that is it for today. I hope you'll excuse what it was probably an incredibly rambly voiceover. It's actually like it is 5:30 in the morning and I haven't slept yet, which is not how I like to roll. I like to sleep, but I gotta get this out for you guys. So that is it for today. As usual, I do have the original available, and I think I'll probably have prints as well. We'll see how I feel in the morning, but I think this is one of the pieces where I'll probably wake up in the morning and look at it and be more okay with it then than I am right now after I finished it. But yeah, I'll have this available and lots of other prints, and I'll have a link in the description as well as in the end card that'll take you to my art shop. And please check out all the other amazing artists who took part in this. And if you want to also take part in it, feel free to go ahead and hashtag anything with hashtag YTAC for YouTube Artists Collective. And that's it for today. I do post every Wednesdays and Saturdays, so I'll see you guys at my next video.